Hello guys. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm gonna be talking about Arlott, one of the strongest fighters in the game. And also talk about how Arlott works in full details, which includes his builds, spells, emblems, including some tips and tricks that will help you dominate the game. So let's get started with the video.
Welcome to Mobile Legends!
Arlott is the 119th hero in the game. He was released on February 14th. And if you're looking for a hero who's both nimble as an assassin and tough as nails like a tank, then Arlott is the hero you're looking for. And not to mention, he's one of the most picked heroes in the current meta and also in tournaments and high rank. Arlott generally relies on his physical damage and his second skill, which is kind of similar to Lancelot's first skill, but in order to use it, you need to understand how Arlott's passive work. So let's start with his passive. With the help of his passive, nearby enemy heroes and those affected by his skills will be marked with his passive. The mark lasts for 8 seconds on an enemy hero, and the eye automatically marks nearby heroes every 8 seconds. And enemies that are close to you will always get marked even if you are hiding in a bush, so it can be quite challenging for Arlott to pull off ganks. And there can be multiple marks at once, but with your passive you can only mark one enemy hero at a time. Marked enemies will glow violet in color or even blue, depending on the skin you're using. And if you want to mark more than one enemy at once, you can use his first skill to do that. So let's talk about his first skill. With the help of his first skill, Arlott slams his spear, dealing 200 physical damage to targets in front of him, and briefly stunning those that got hit by his skill. Enemies that got hit by the further part of his stick will get stunned for 1 second, while the enemies that gets hit under this area will be stunned for 0.1 seconds. The skill can stun multiple targets in a straight line, and the enemies that get hit by this skill will be marked with his passive, and that includes minions and jungle creeps as well. Arlott's first skill is a great farming tool in the laning phase as it has the ability to mark an entire minion wave at once. And make sure to create distance whenever you use this skill because the stun duration is longer the further the target is. Now, let's talk about his second skill.
Whatever serves the purpose.
Arlott's second skill is a dash, escape skill, and this skill is his bread and butter skill, just like Lancelot's first skill. With the help of his second skill, he charges at the target with his spear, dealing 135 physical damage. If you dash towards a target that is marked by his passive Demon Gaze, the skill will deal double damage, and also refresh its cooldown if the enemy is marked with his passive, and it will also heal 5% of his HP. Since this is a targeted dash skill, it requires a specific target to activate, meaning you cannot use this skill if there are no enemies. This skill also works on minions and creeps, but the healing effect is reduced to 50%. But you cannot mark the turtle and lord with his passive. And whenever an enemy is marked with your passive, your second skill will glow. Now, let's talk about his ultimate skill. With the help of his ultimate, he performs a wide sweeping attack, dealing 400 physical damage and displacing affected targets to the end of the swing. And enemies that are hit by your ultimate will also be marked with his passive. The skill also reveals targets hidden in the bush for 3 seconds, making it a great anti-ganking tool in the laning phase. It's a great skill to flee by propelling opponents to the opposite side of the battlefield, or pushing the enemies towards your allies. And you can also use this skill to set up the enemies in one position, making it easier for your teammates to land their skill. And here are some easy combos you can learn.
Nothing escapes my vision.
Legendary!
And make sure to always use your basic attack after every skill you use, and that way, you will deal a lot more damage compared to not using your basic attacks. And always make sure to retreat if you mess up your combo or second skill, because Arlott is a skill-dependent hero, and without his second skill, he's pretty much useless. Now, let's talk about his builds. When it comes to his builds, this is what makes Arlott so good. It's because you can adapt to any situation when needed. If your team is missing a roamer or tank, then you can go for the tank build. And trust me, you can still deal a decent amount of damage even if you go tank build with Arlott. And if you're wondering where does he gets his damage from tank build, then it's because of the Thunderbelt. Thunderbelt will provide you with 40 plus physical defense, along with 800 HP, 3% mana regen, and 10% cooldown reduction. It has a unique passive which allows you to deal true damage after every time you cast your skills, just like Endless Battle. But with Thunderbelt, the more HP you have, the more damage you'll deal. So it's a good item if you're going for tank build. And to top it off, you can also add Hunter Strike in your tank build. If you're looking for more mobility and damage, Hunter Strike has a unique passive that gives you 50% movement speed when you damage an enemy or creep 5 times in a row. And Arlott can easily trigger the unique passive of Hunter Strike with his second skill. But if you're feeling more aggressive in the laning phase, then you can also go for full offensive build, which includes Endless Battle, Blade of Heptases, Hunter Strike, Malefic Roar, and Rose Gold. With full damage build on Arlott, you will easily be able to melt the enemies like butter. But the reason why going full damage build isn't the best is because Arlott's defensive stats tend to fall off in the late game, and even if you melt the enemies like butter during the early to mid game, the enemies will definitely have an upper hand during the late game. That is why sustain build is the most popular among Arlott users. And honestly speaking, the sustain build is way better compared to full damage build. For the sustain build, you only need 2 offensive items, which are Endless Battle and Hunter Strike. Remember that Endless Battle is the core item for Arlott. That is why most people will tell you to use your basic attacks after casting every skill, and that way, you'll be able to trigger the true damage of Endless Battle. The sustain build usually includes Endless Battle as first item, and after Endless Battle, you can go for Dominance Ice if your opponents mostly rely on basic attacks, because the unique passive of Dominance Ice will reduce their attack speed by 70%, and also reduce their regen effects by 50%. And after that, you can go for Thunderbelt, and then Hunter Strike, followed by Oracle. Now, let's talk about his emblems. For his emblem, you can choose the tank emblem if you are playing him as the roamer. And if you're playing him in the side lane, then you can choose between the assassin emblem and fighter emblem. I'd recommend you to go for the fighter emblem if you're going for damage or sustain build, as the fighter emblem will provide you with 10% extra spell vamp, making you more durable in a fight. But if you want more mobility and penetration, you can choose the assassin emblem, as it will provide you with adaptive penetration and movement speed. And honestly speaking, the fighter emblem is better for Arlott, but it depends on your preference and playstyle. Fighter emblem makes you more durable, and assassin emblem gives you more mobility, meaning, you will be able to go in and out of fights easily compared to the fighter emblem. And for his talents, if you are using the fighter emblem, pick agility for his first talent, as it will give you extra movement speed. But if you're using the assassin emblem, pick rapture for his first talent. And for his second talent, pick Festival of Blood for more spell vamp. And for his core talent, pick Brave Smite. Brave Smite goes really well with your second skill, and it doubles the HP restored when using your second skill. But if you want more damage, then you can go for Lethal Ignition. Now, let's talk about his battle spell.
Need to go.
For his battle spell, to make the most out of his abilities, it's recommended to use Petrify as a battle spell, since its stun effect activates his passive Demon Gaze. Meaning if you use Petrify on the enemies, they will be marked with his passive. This allows him to extend his combo with the extra stun and deal more damage to his enemies. However, if you plan to play him as a roamer, it might be a good idea to go for Vengeance instead. Vengeance enhances his survivability, ensuring that he lasts long in teamfights after using his ultimate to start a teamfight. Now, let's talk about some tips on how to use him in a game. During the early game, Play safely until you reach level 2, and once you reach level 2, you can start to play aggressively. And there is no specific skill combo in the game because the situation changes all the time. And make sure to help your jungler get the turtle. His ultimate is very good at contesting the turtle. If the turtle comes down to 50-50 retribution battle, you can use your first skill to dash towards the enemy's jungler and stun him with your ultimate, and that way, it will give your jungler the upper hand in securing the turtle. And when it comes to the mid-game, try to push turrets, and don't indulge yourself in unnecessary fights. Farm whenever you get the chance, and remember that Arlott is fully dependent on his skills, so prioritize your 2 core items to get stronger. And during the late game, try to focus on teamfights, as Arlott is really useful in teamfights. So don't try to initiate a fight without your team. Wait for the perfect moment to jump on the enemy team while they are trying to gank. That if you were playing as a tank, there are no other options left but to wait in the bush, and wait for the perfect moment to use skill 1 to stun them. Then use your ultimate to move the enemy hyper from his secure position to outnumber the enemies. Arlott is a very strong hero with lots of abilities. We can mark him as an S-tier hero. What makes him so good is that he can play a versatile role just like Frederick, which makes him unique and flexible, and he can also be used as an MM or mage counter. However, because of his abilities, it is definitely a medium-level difficulty. Because Arlott does not have a long escape skill, and if you miss his second skill, try to avoid enemies' hard CC. Because once you get caught in the enemy's CC and you don't have your second skill, there is no comeback, but he is definitely among one of the best fighters ever since he was released. So, what do you think about Arlott? Make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment. And if you're new to my channel, consider subscribing. I make tutorial and informative videos about heroes and items. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Thank you for watching.